What's up everybody, this is Ven, and I welcome you to the MOC Spotlight, where we take apart what you build. For today's episode, we'll be going over Onua, created and posted on the MOC pages by Gale Winthrope. Now before we get right into it, let me tell you about my method of reviewing, which involves a point system that is based on 3 fundamental attributes: the overall appearance of the MOC, the build of the MOC itself, and the concept and ideas behind the MOC's creation. Each quality will mount up to 5 points, leading up to a final score that will be determined at the end of the episode, and please remember that this is all based on my opinion. That sounded pretty good. Now let's get this started. So what we have here is the results of Onua participating in a 24-hour fitness program. Like, you ever seen those infomercials about these crazy workout sessions that would take up a whole lot of time and dedication and blood, sweat, and tears and all that other good stuff, like some sort of sadistic human milkshake? This creation looks as though Onua has been doing something like that for years. And now, for the most part, it looks really cool. I'm digging this appearance for Onua. I'm digging this appearance in general. Like, I'd be the biggest liar in the world if I said that I didn't like the way this MOC looked, because I kinda based my own self-MOC on it for a good bit of time due to my unoriginality and inability to come up with my own design. I know, I'm horrible. But yeah, no, I really like this MOC. Like, everything looks so built and kinda conveys this heavy set look. But real quick, I do want to point out a few flaws that I find that this MOC has, such as this abnormally thin waist area. Like, the rest of the MOC is so big and bulky, yet once you look lower below the pecs, and it starts getting really thin, and it just doesn't really flow all that well. It looks a little odd. Like, you'd think there'd be a bit more support in this area for those gigantic arms, which themselves look really good. And I gotta say, I really like this whole armored appearance. I mean, it does look a little odd that it's all upper body armor, and there's nothing on the legs, except for the feet, which is kind of weird. I actually don't think I'm a fan of these, but I do understand that the main reason why the upper body has so much armor is because it's based on a Toa Onua, who simply have this silver armor on their chest and their shoulders. But with that said, at least the Toa Onua had another color in their color scheme to contrast with their primary color. Or this Onua doesn't have anything except for black and silver. And where there isn't silver, like in the legs and the lower abdomen, it's just pure black. There's nothing else. And this doesn't necessarily look bad. I think the MOC still looks fine. But it can be said that it's a little bit bland, because it's like really just 2 colors and they're black and silver. Probably some of the more uninteresting colors out there. But I mean, it is Onua, so it's not like I shouldn't have expected these colors. But hey, if it's supposed to be like a reimagining, you could totally just throw in whatever, you know? Something to make the character look a bit more interesting. And no, I'm not saying that this Onua doesn't look more interesting than the actual sets, but I mean, there could have been more thrown into this, maybe? I don't know. I love these chainsaws on the arms. I think that's a really cool idea. And I also love how, for the most part, this bulky, complex look is consistent throughout the MOC's design. Like, this is just a really cool design. And what's also cool is to realize how much of this design is influenced by the build of this MOC, because this whole complexity and, I guess, texture that the MOC has is purely made up of how all these Technic and Bionicle parts were put together. Like, if you look at the legs especially, it's like pure Technic. Just the usage of all these small complex parts, putting them together and making it look the way it does, while also maintaining some sort of comprehensive shape. And the rest of the MOC really does this as well, especially in the arms. The arms look the most solidified of the entirety of this MOC. Like, everything is fit so well together. Taking a look at the back of the MOC, we can even see just the complexity and just how dense the build of the torso really is. Like, there is obviously a lot going on here to keep this holding still. And same thing goes for the legs. The legs look really well structured, which is really important to keep a top-heavy MOC like this standing up. And another thing that helps is the inclusion of this big piston smack down the middle of the back of the torso. And not only was this such a clever decision to make in terms of keeping the MOC stable, but also doesn't look too bad aesthetically. Though I kinda wish this torso just wasn't so elongated, because not only does it look awkward, but I feel like that just makes the torso a bit heavier than it really needed to be. Like maybe just making this lower part of the abdomen just a little smaller, maybe that would have helped in terms of both the appearance and keeping this MOC stable. Now this MOC has a really nice solidified build, but I have noticed that articulation does seem a bit limited, and this is most apparent in the neck area. I mean, come on, even the 2015 rendition of Onua has a neck. This guy looks as though he sacrificed his neck for the greater good. Also, his arms seem a little bit restricted. Like, he does have elbow articulation as made evident in these pictures, and that's cool and all, but it doesn't look as though he can move his shoulders around all too much. Almost like the armor is just kind of limiting the range of movement here. At least the legs are fine, they appear to function properly, and he even has fingers, so finger articulation is present. So few steps forward, few steps back. It's not all that bad though. I also really like the functionality of being able to equip the chainsaws to the underside of his forearms and then simply pop them off when they're not in use. I mean, really, that's not like so much a crazy or new and innovative feature that's like so different from, I don't know, just simply having the MOC hold weapons in his hands or anything. But it's just a really cool little design choice that I felt was worth mentioning. Now, one last thing to note about the way this MOC was built was the custom head. As you can probably tell, this MOC does not have a traditional bionicle head behind that mask. The eyes make this quite apparent. They are actually like these lightsaber pieces that you'll find on Star Wars minifigures, you know what I mean? Those little parts. But anywho, two of these parts were used in some weird custom head build in order to, I don't know, give the MOC a more different look, I guess. Or maybe it was just simply to keep up with the whole custom motif that this MOC has, where everything is just built from an accumulation of small parts. Now, as far as the concept goes, this is fairly easy to talk about. From what I've gathered, the big idea was that the builder was suggested to basically just redesign the character of Onua based on his own personal tastes, and then he came up with this goal of redesigning Onua based on how he think he should have been built in the first place. Or, well, actually, it's not so much a goal, it was just more of a motivation. And the builder claimed that he really enjoyed Onua's original design in 2001, with the Nuva version coming in at like a close second. And so he took inspiration from both designs and integrated it into his own reimagining of the character, which explains why this MOC has like the original Pakari, but also carries this silver armor and these chainsaws from the Toa Onua design. Now, overall, I think he did a pretty good job executing his ideas, you know, just reimagining the character without deviating too far from some of the original designs. And like I said earlier, this is just a really good looking MOC. I'm definitely convinced that it's supposed to be Onua. I think his character was captured really well in this reinterpretation. And I also really like this integration of both the Mata design and the Nuva design into this best of both worlds sort of result. Now, could some things have been done a little bit better? Yeah, definitely. I think the inclusion of the dark gray from the original sets would have actually kind of fleshed out this appearance a little bit more. But aside from that, I can't imagine anything else I would actually suggest to the builder, aside from fixing up some of the things I pointed out earlier. But again, those are more of like fixes rather than actual additions to the MOC's design. So that said, really good job here. Just a really, really good job. So let's move on to the final scores, while we still have a little bit of time to do that. In terms of appearance, this MOC receives a 4 out of 5. This looks just awesome. It's a really unique revamp of Onua, as I haven't seen too many that try to attempt the same design choices as this one. And while I did find a couple of issues with it, overall I think it just looks really cool. In terms of the build, I'll give it a 4.5 out of 5. This is a really solid build. Like, it's just really well put together. And despite the fact that the entirety of the MOC is pretty much Technic based, it doesn't end up looking bad in its aesthetic. And the figure is actually pretty well articulated, though it is a little restricted in some areas, which is why I docked off half a point. Everything else really well thought up. I especially like the inclusion of the piston on the back. It's like stability was really taken into consideration here. And then the concept of the MOC itself, receives a 4 out of 5. Overall, a really well done execution of the big idea. I think this is a really successful reimagining of Onua. I just think that, some things could have been improved on, as I pointed out in the appearance and the build, but there isn't really much I would add to it, aside from making those improvements happen. So, with all that said, we are left with our final score, which I will dictate as a 12.5 out of 15. Great job, Gale Winthrope. I hope to see much more out of you, and I'm just glad that I was able to find your MOC again, considering the last time I even saw this MOC was way back when I came out with this iteration of my self-MOC, and that was essentially when I discovered that this creation even existed. By this point, I already deviated from this design in my self-MOC, at least in terms of the build. Obviously I still carried over some ideas that weren't my own, but at least I'm giving credit where credit is due. So thank you for the inspiration, Gale Winthrope, and thank you all for watching this video. Be sure to rate, comment, subscribe, check out the message boards at board.ttvpodcast.com, which is actually a really nice spot for you to post your own LEGO creations under the designated LEGO Creations category. And you want to know why you should post your creations there? Because I check out that area all the time, and this is where I pick up most of my choices for the MOC Spotlight. So hint hint, wink wink. I look forward to seeing your contributions, and I'll see you all next time.